If you're thinking about doing your taxes yourself, TurboTax is probably the first one that comes to mind. It's definitely the biggest name in tax preparation, but is it the right choice for you, and is it worth the money? I'll give you some answers. Hi, I'm Cindy from Smart Family Money. I help you learn how to shop smarter, save money, and save time so you can get back to changing the world. If you've been around my channel, you probably already know that I'm a mom on a budget, but you may not know that I've worked as a professional tax preparer. So I've done plenty of tax returns to have some experience. To test out this year's version of TurboTax, I used some sample tax forms and I tried out as many of the features as possible. I also included TurboTax in my roundup video where I compared the best tax preparation options. You don't want to miss any of those, so please click subscribe and turn on your notifications so you know when my next videos come out. So let's take a look at some of the things I liked about this year's version of TurboTax. The most obvious is it's very simple and pretty and nice to look at. It walks you through preparing your taxes with lots of easy questions, and it makes it very user-friendly. TurboTax also makes it really easy to upload your forms. To get started, you can upload a PDF of your 1040 from last year if you hadn't used TurboTax to carry it over. For your W-2s, you have lots of options for how to get it in there, even if you don't want to type. You can import directly from your employer, you can scan it with your phone, or you can upload a PDF. Of course, you can also type it if you want to do that. For 1099 INT or DIV, which are for interest or dividends, you can upload the PDF, or you can also link directly with your investment company or your bank to pull in your forms that way. While that seems pretty convenient, I thought that was kind of a silly option because 1099 INTs and DIVs are really simple forms. Usually to enter those in for an INT, you're just going to type the name of the bank and how much interest you earned in the year. That's it. It probably would take more keystrokes for me to log into my bank than it would just to enter it in. Speaking of the simple forms like 1099 INT, they do simplify the page that they show you when you put those in, which is kind of nice because those sorts of forms only usually have 1 or 2 boxes that you actually need to enter, and they only show you those important boxes. They leave off all the rest of them that are generally blank. Another feature that a lot of people love about TurboTax is their feature called It's Deductible. You use It's Deductible to figure out the value of charitable donations that are items instead of cash. So for example, if you take a bag of clothing to Goodwill, you have to put into your tax form how much that was worth. Some people might just take a guess and say $50 for the whole bag, but if you use It's Deductible, it will give you values based on eBay values for each of the items on your list that you donated. So for example, if I donated a pair of women's khakis, I might think they're worth $2, but by using It's Deductible, it can tell me that they're actually worth $14 based on eBay values. While It's Deductible is a really nice feature, it's only useful if you itemize your deductions. And with the new tax laws that were passed in late 2017, very few people itemize anymore. The statistics show that over 90% of Americans now take the standard deduction. So for that 90% of us, It's Deductible is pretty useless actually. And even if you did want to use It's Deductible, you can use it outside of TurboTax and it's actually free to everyone. So you could use it regardless of what kind of tax preparation you do. All right, so let's talk about some of the downsides of TurboTax. The biggest one that you'll notice is the upselling is ridiculous. Even if you qualify for TurboTax's free edition, they're going to try to sell you on all kinds of services, including a $30 plus version of the free version, which I don't know why you would ever need that. And if you start by using the free version, as soon as you enter any sort of deduction or expense that is outside of what the free version covers, it will force you to upgrade to the deluxe version before you can even finish entering your data. And if you started with a higher version than you needed, or you were forced to upgrade, I could not see any way to go back down and downgrade to the lower level. So they're really trying to push you into those more expensive products. The next downside is that even though things were very simplified, I actually felt like the simplification got in the way sometimes. It just made it a little more difficult to find all the forms that I needed because it felt like it was forcing me to stick with the very simplified version of the tax return, when sometimes you're going to need something outside of that. I also found the navigation around TurboTax a little bit tricky. If I needed to go back somewhere else, I couldn't use the back button or it seemed to mess everything up. And it was just hard to sometimes go back to other sections. Another example of where their simplification seemed to just make things more difficult was the W-2 screens. Somehow it ended up with 5 screens just to enter one W-2. It just kept making me click through more things to enter the rest of the W-2. It should not be that complicated to add one form. Overall, I think TurboTax has some nice features and it's pretty good software, but I think it's pretty expensive for what it is. If you want to see how TurboTax stacks up against the competition, check out my video about which I think is the best tax software. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.